Hey guys, Austin Wilson here with another AE tutorial. Today I'm going to show you how to use the tracker controls inside of After Effects. The first thing you're going to want to do is bring in your video plate, whatever objects you're going to track. So once we have that in our composition, as you can see here in this video plate we have two tracking markers that we want to track. Now when you're making tracking markers, I don't know if you've ever seen the behind the scenes footage from movies that they shot on large green screens and stuff like that. The tracking markers are always in this plus shape or square shapes. They're not usually dots or points. So keep that in mind because the tracker works a little bit better around 90-degree angles rather than circular shapes. So once we have that in our timeline, we want to bring in our object. So you can import an image in or create an image inside of After Effects. In this case, we're going to do a quick test text. So once we have that in our scene, we can go ahead and click on our tracker. If the tracker window panel is not open, you can go into Window and click on the tracker. It'll open the panel. Once the panel is open, you want to select your motion source, which is going to be our backplate. Then it's going to bring us into our layer panel. Then what you want to do is highlight the layer, select track motion, and it's going to make all the other options available. So its default setting is to give you one tracking point. Most camera shake comes from the rotation of the camera, not necessarily the up and down movement. So it's always helpful to have two tracking points. The scale works well if you are moving forward or back. In this case, our camera is just being handheld in one place, so we don't need to use the scale option. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to click and drag your tracking boxes over your tracking marker. Now, I generally don't put it in the center. I'll use the edge corner of the tracking marker, and then you want to scale your tracking boxes, the inside one just to be as big as your tracking marker right at the edge, and then the second tracking box you want it to be about 10 to 15% larger. So once you get your tracking markers all set up, let's see if we find a good area of pixels that we like. So once you have that all set up and ready to go, then you want to edit target. So if you have multiple layers in your timeline, you're going to want to click this drop down, select your image or your text layer that you want the tracking points to attach to. Once you have that ready to go, then you want to click the Options tab. Now in the Options tab, the default settings are going to be luminance in your channel and 80% as your confidence. So you know, in this situation, the luminance values are not going to work as well because our scene is lit pretty evenly overall. So the luminance values work better for outdoor scenes. Saturation works good if you have lots of really bright colors. The RGB channel is going to work better for this instance because we want the trackers to recognize these blue pixels on top of the table. So once we have that selected, then we can change our confidence to 90%. And then once that's all finished, you want to click the Analyze Forward button. Now After Effects is going to analyze all the way forward, all on its own, frame by frame. So this may take a little while depending on how fast your computer is. Now if this doesn't work, as you can see, it looks like our keyframe center point is sliding around just a little bit. So you may want to try different corners of your tracking points, or this center of your tracking point. It might work a little better. So once that's all finished, you can stop it and see where it's at, or you can wait till it finishes on its own. Then you're going to click Apply, click OK. Now what's going to happen is that our text has moved. So in order to correct this, we want to move the text, sorry about that, we want to move the text, place it wherever we want. So let's say we want it, you know, here to cover up the tracking points. So as you can see that once we've moved our text layer, the first keyframe, anchor point, sorry, let's go back one more. So when you're changing the position of your image or text layer, you want to drag the timeline cursor all the way back to 0, very first thing. Then you want to move your text layer. So let's say we want our text layer to cover up the tracking points. Then we're going to take our pan behind tool and we're going to move our first keyframe back to its original position. And this allows us to move the text wherever we want. Another thing that's cool is that if you enable the 3D layer, you can rotate the image around and place the image in a specific position without disrupting the keyframes. So you can do that as well. So what I have here is the finished version. As you can see, once we scroll through it, we get a little bit of jump right there at that first keyframe, and then it tends to track pretty good for a few seconds. The tracker's not always going to work perfect first try with the default settings, so sometimes you got to go in and play with the you know, change it to luminance or change the confidence to 95% or even 100% so that it works better, and try moving your tracking points around to different spots in your scene, especially if it's an outdoor scene. You know, something that looks good as a tracking point may not work, and something else that you didn't think of might work a little better. When I do this type of thing, what I usually do is I shoot a plate that's 30 seconds long, even though I'm only going to use 10 seconds of it. So, you know, shoot a longer back plate, make keyframes for the entire thing, then use the best 10 seconds or 15 seconds or however much you need of your back plate. Because you'll notice that some frames will work better or some frames won't. So once we have this set up here, you can see that the tracking test holds pretty well. It's not sliding too much. It's got a little bit of sliding, a little bit of rotation variance, which is going to be really common. So once you have that all finished, then you can send it to the render queue and export it out. And that's it. I hope this was helpful for you guys, and have a great day.